Are you against any rapprochement between Tehran and Washington, Tehran and the West in general?
Not at all. I'm not against any rapprochement because what I have in mind is the best interest of the Iranian people. Our country has suffered as a result of isolation, but it is due to the clerical regime's policy of intimidation and repression at home, coupled with this antagonistic attitude that has basically forced the rest of the world to take a step away from Iran. I am absolutely for normalization of relations, provided that a certain behavior is perceived coming from the clerical regime. And principally the issue that I have in mind, in the interest of my compatriots, is the issue of human rights, is the issue of lack of political freedoms, is the issue of Iranians being completely bypassed and ignored, and basically suffering under a tyrannical system.
Most of the rest of the world looks at Tehran today. They see reform, they see moderation, they see a measure of democracy that was not seen under the regime of your father. How do you perceive Iran today?
Well, first of all, this is not about the past. It's about the future and the issue of Iranians having right to self-determination and political freedoms. Clearly, the situation is absent today. On the one hand, you have carefully filtered candidates that are pre-screened and have to abide by the wishes of the supreme leader and are not the true representative of the people. And in that context, the Iranian people do not have, the way the West looks at elections, freedom to choose their own candidates. Beyond that, the issue is not so much a question of moderates versus extremists or radicals within the system. Rather, it's about the people of Iran having no chance of self-representation under the clerical regime, and in fact they have to live under a theocracy that has the only constitution, written constitution in the world, that specifically rejects the concept of popular sovereignty.
Let me ask you a final question here, and that is the response of the people that are living in the Iranian diaspora, the exiles, if you will, and the refugees from Iran today to the attacks on September 11th. And also, were you surprised by the official reaction that came out of Tehran, one of empathy and sympathy?
Well, as I said, the Iranian people have a completely different idea, aspiration, and agenda than the clerical regime in Iran. Obviously, most of my compatriots abroad were terribly shocked, and they were joined by millions of Iranians at home. On the very same night of this attack, Iranians in Iran held candlelight vigils, and these vigils were broken up by the regime's element. That clearly puts you in a position to distinguish between what the people are really thinking like and what the regime actually is trying to curtail. They do not want the Iranian people to have a chance to speak what's on their mind. And yes, every now and then they will give you some lip service, but the sincerity of this regime should be under question. And after, I think, 23 years of persistent track record of harboring and entertaining and inspiring extremism, radicalism, violence, is clearly not the agenda of a government that has the interest of its own nation at heart in the first place, or is even interested to contribute on the world scene to world stability and peace. And clearly the regime has been clearly antagonistic to, for instance, the peace process. And we see time and time again a position that irrespective of who is in government in Iran, the collective psyche of this regime is antagonistic to democracy itself, and the survival of this regime depends on that fact. It is time now for the world to invest on the people of Iran who want an opportunity to self-determination.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Our thanks to Mr. Reza Pahlavi of Iran and the son of the exiled Shah of Iran. Well, coming up next on Q&A, how much cooperation can be expected from Iran? Could this prove to be a bridge in ties between Tehran and Washington? That's coming up next. You're watching Q&A.
چه وقیحانه، من به هیچ کجای این گفتگو که قانع نبودم، ولی وقیحانه ترین بخشش اونجا بود که این گوینده پرسید که مردم الان در درون کشور از مدریت و پیشرفت و آزادی و اینها صحبت میکنن که این آزادی ها و این چیزها در زمان پدر تو نبود و این شاهزاده جوانمرد هم پاسخی که اصلا به درد خودش میخورد به ایشون داد. و من خیلی متاسفم که زمانه این موقعیت رو ایجاد کرده که ایشون به نمایندگی از گرفتاری های مردم ایران بره و در CNN، در یک تلویزیونی که ملت‌های دیگه دارن میشنونش سخن بگه. البته خب در آغاز حرفایی رو که ما در شب اول و بیگمان ایشون تلویزیون ما رو میبینن زدن که خب تروریست در اصل اونجاست. اگر یاد شما بینندگان گرامی باشه، ما در نخستین شبی که این حادثه در آمریکا اتفاق افتاد، نخستین پرسش ما در برنامه زنده این بود که خودکرده را تدبیر نیست. خودکرده را تدبیر چیست؟ به آقای جورج بوش که گفته بود ما وانتد میخوایم اونها رو خواهیم آورد اینجا، گفتم شما اگر میخواید مقصر اصلی رو، و این برنامه رو ما برای اینها ایمیل کردیم، جوابش هم از کاخ سفید برای ما رسید و مترجم هم بدانید که دارن و اینجور چیزها رو خیلی با دقت نگاه میکنن. خیلی هم تشکر کردن و گفته بودن که این بسیار مهمه. ما در اون نشست، در اون نخستین برنامه گفتیم که آقای بوش اگر میخواهید کسی رو محاکمه کنید، نخست آقای جیمی کارتر رو محاکمه کنید، زیرا که او بود که در کنفرانس گوادالوپ نشست و با سران اروپا خنجر رو بر علیه سعادت مردم ایران بست با همین حرفایی که امروز این گوینده زد و گفتش که در دوران پدر ایشون اون آزادی ها و اون چیزها نبوده. به راستی اینها از مردم ایران، از 7 میلیون آواره و از خودشون شرمشون نمیاد؟ ما مطلبی رو روانشاد سرهنگ ستاد علوی در ماهنامه راه نیاکان نوشته بود که سعی کردیم در برخی از این شماره ها اون مطلب رو بنده خوندم و به مناسبت روز درگذشت سرهنگ ستاد علوی، و در اون مطلب یکایک اظهار نظر رؤسای جمهور همین دزدان سیاسی بین المللی رو گفت نوشته بود. در اون یکایک از مستندات که از بوش نمیدونم از تمامی رؤسای جمهور و سیاستمداران آمریکا پادشاه فقید رو به عنوان یک مرد آزاده، مردی آزادی جوی، آزادی خواه معرفی کرده بودن. بعد میبینید که گوینده میاد و میگه مردم ایران الان از یک آزادی هایی و رفرمی برخوردارن که در زمان پدر شما نبودن و اون جوان هم توانایی پاسخگویی ندارد. به هر روی ما ویژه این گفتگو، برای اینکه بنده باید یک بار بشینم، چون این گونه مسائل من رو راستش زود خشمگین میکنه و خشم گوشهای آدم رو میبنده و در نتیجه اگر که این شاهزاده ایران شاهزاده‌ای بود که میخواست با آینده ایران بیاندیشه، این گفتگو رو خودشون نمیکردن.